And a crucial update from the United States now. Well, immigration attorneys are reporting a rise in the number of green card holders, including many Indians, facing secondary inspection and even overnight detention at US airports by Customs and Border Protection officers. In fact, even in some instances, individuals are allegedly pressured to relinquish their green cards voluntarily. Now, who is particularly vulnerable? Well, elderly Indians who live with their children in the US but tend to spend the winter months in India appear to be particularly vulnerable to this scrutiny. So what's the law and what exactly is going on? Well, according to the Immigration and Nationality Act in the US, a lawful permanent resident, an LPR, or green card holder who has been absent from the US for over 180 days is considered to be seeking readmission and may be subject to grounds of inadmissibility. Now, while the issue of abandonment, which is relinquishment of the green card status, generally arises when an individual has been outside the US for over a year, a winter stay in India is now also facing heightened scrutiny. And live from Boston, we have with us on NDTV immigration attorney to understand what's going on. Allison Kranz joins us. Allison, thanks so much for your time. Can you explain what legal grounds Customs and Border Protection officers in the US are using to detain green card holders?
Absolutely. So the issue is that when somebody becomes a permanent resident in the United States, they are saying that they plan to permanently and primarily live in the United States. So when an individual is splitting their time between the United States and another country, there's some red flags that can pop up that can cause problems. These types of red flags that the officers look for seem to be contradictory to that person's intent to live primarily and permanently in the United States. So, for example, as you mentioned, the elderly are being targeted in part because oftentimes they're living with their children. They don't have a home. They're not maintaining a home of their own. They don't necessarily have jobs in the United States. Right. So because they don't have income, they're not paying US taxes. That's another tie to the United States that they're missing. And so these types of things under this atmosphere of heightened scrutiny can cause quite a few problems for individuals and have an additional line of questions being asked.
Allison, so how can green card holders ensure that they maintain their status when spending significant time outside the US?
Well, I think the easiest way is to shorten some of those trips, to make sure you're spending more than half of the year in the United States. Perhaps if you're going to spend the winters abroad, take that in smaller segments. Take a couple different trips instead of one particular trip. Another way is to maintain a permanent residence. And if you're maintaining a permanent residence with your children, that still is your permanent residence. That still can become your address. So that's also really important. Also, paying your taxes, even if you're not having regular income, just the fact that you're declaring your taxes is another tie to the United States, showing an intent to return and permanently reside there.
Also, Allison, just clarification on one important point. Is the pressure to voluntarily relinquish a green card actually legal? And what should green card holders do if they face this situation?
You know, I think that when someone is placed into secondary inspection, so they're taken out of line, out of the Customs and Border Patrol, or excuse me, Border Protection line, and they're put into secondary inspection, that can be a stressful situation. Oftentimes people have to wait for long periods of time and they don't know what's going on. And so just being there adds extra pressure. But there's a couple important things to keep in mind. Number one, that those officers can't take away your permanent residence. They might ask you questions leading you to believe that you have to sign papers to give up your permanent residence. That's not true. And those officers can't take it away from you.
Well, thank you so much, Allison, for that crucial clarification. We will, of course, revert you for regular updates as and when things progress with the Customs and Border Protection officers as well.
Thank you.